the last toll gate shut down in Manheim Township. When you used to travel the Lidditz Pike and the Manheim Pike and the New Holland Pike, you had to pay unless you could find roads to get around the toll booth. But the last one closed in 1940. You know where that was? That was the New Holland Pike. Just off Pleasure Road was where that last toll gate was.
You have a picture of that.
Okay, that was actually 1930. If I said 1940, I was wrong. There is that toll gate on the New Holland Pike. You're looking east. Just behind us here would have been Pleasure Road crossing.
And that was a McGran farm behind it.
Mm-hmm. More McGran Farm. Yep. There's the first graduates of Manheim Township High School. There's none of them living anymore. 1932. 1945, Second World War begins. And in Manheim Township, it's a big year for the high school. It was the first year that Manheim Township fielded a football team. 1945. Now, at the time that they started playing football, the only other schools in Manheim Township that were playing football were Catholic High, Columbia, Elizabethtown, Ephrata, Lidditz, and McCaskey High School. 10 more schools have started playing football since that year in 1945. Recognize those people? Oz and Boo?
Yeah.
You know who this is?
Bob Hearn.
You know who that is?
Bob Hearn.
Bob Hearn. That's a friend of ours named Bob Hearn. You know who that is? Classmate, Boo, of ours.
Sam Edwards.
Sam Edwards. That was Sam Edwards. They were playing Catholic High. This
Check
was
the
in
helmets.
1946. The following year, 1947, Henry Ford died. Jackie Robinson was signed to play baseball by the Dodgers. And for the first time, Lancaster City began nibbling away at the borders of Manheim Township, annexing properties. Now, I'm not going to get involved in telling you what that means and how that they happened to do that, but it was easier to do at that point, so they annexed Armstrong, they annexed the stockyards, they annexed the railroad station. Later came DeWalt and RCA, Long Park, all of them annexed by the city of Lancaster. The city was looking for more taxes. And they promised these entities that they were absorbing that they would get a break on the insurance that they had to pay for services. It didn't quite work out that way. The township didn't like this at all, as we'll see in just a few minutes. Okay, this is 1950. That's the Conestoga Motor Lodge. That was the year the Korean War broke out. It was the year that Peanuts, the comic strip, started. 1950. In the 60s, incidentally, we had some more motels. The Landis Valley Motor Inn, just recently torn down. The Host Town, which has had about 50 different names since it was the Host Town. And the Parkside Motel, which is the one on the Harrisburg Pike. Okay, we're up to 1952. Dwight Eisenhower is elected president. UFOs were first reported. And in Manheim Township, voters were asked to say yes or no to the township becoming a first-class township. Previously, it had been known as a second-class township. When you're a first-class township, it's very much more difficult to annex part of your land by an adjacent municipality. And that's what they wanted to stop. And it stopped it because the vote was 2-1 in favor of yes. Long lines of voters appeared at the 3 voting places in 1952, only 3 in Manheim Township, at the schools, at Brecht, at Schaefer, and at the high school. But the voters voted 2-1 to make us a first-class township, which we still are, and still the only one in Lancaster County. All right.
Nat, that got to be your father, right?
What?
That's Mr. Netscher.
I wasn't going to say that. That's my dad.
I was going to tell you he's wearing white socks.
We always wore white socks.
Yeah.
Well, you did back then.
Yeah. And look at the lines of people waiting to vote. Okay, 1953. Anybody know what that road is?
Lidditz.
And what's happening here?
Route
That's the
30.
Lidditz Pike,
Route 30.
and they're building the bypass, the Route 30 bypass. It was completed from Route 30 on the east of the city of Lancaster to a relocated Route 230. And this really opened up commercial development in Manheim Township, in the north of the city. So this was, that house is still there, incidentally. Just beyond the bypass, on the left-hand side of the street when you're driving north. Okay, 1958. The year the first U.S. satellite was launched at Cape Canaveral. And the first shopping center in Lancaster County opened in 1958. And certainly you will have already guessed which one that was. It's the opening of the Lancaster Shopping Center on the Lidditz Pike. Now, if you drive by the Lancaster Shopping Center today, you'll see that vast changes are going on there. This is the way it looked on the night it opened in 1958. You'll remember that W.T. Grant had a store there, Kresge's, a men's store called Tim Doutrick's, Joe the Motorist had a store there, and the drugstore at the end of the line on the Oregon Pike side was the
Ray and Dare.
Ray and Dare drugstore. And we're jumping ahead to 1969. That was the year that Neil Armstrong walked on the moon. And the first movie theater opened in Manheim Township. Where was it? It was the Eden Theater. There's now a Sheets there. Corner of Eden Road and the Oregon Pike. The Eden Theater. Although I remember back in the 1940s that there were outdoor movies shown in what was known as Hayden Zug Park, out where PPL is now located. They had a screen set up and a stand with a projector on it, and you took your chairs out and got out of your car and watched movies being projected on this screen. Okay. 1972, Hurricane Agnes. This, incidentally, 1972 was the year that the last U.S. ground forces pulled out of Vietnam. But it was the year of Hurricane Agnes, and the most visible signs that we had had a hurricane coming through Manheim Township were the washing out of 2 bridges, 2 covered bridges. One at Hunsaker, the Hunsaker Bridge, and the other was the Pinetown Bridge. This is the Hunsaker Bridge that had been washed down the creek, and it came to rest against the bridge over the New Holland Pike. There's the covered bridge. Look at that water. Okay. we better do that. Years from now, if somebody's doing that, maybe they'll say that in 2010 was the year that there was a big oil rig explosion in the Gulf of Mexico, and also the year that this magnificent library was completed. The waterworks. This was down at the waterworks where people used to fish and they used to swim. And I especially like this picture, if you'll forgive me, because this woman almost got all of her body into her bathing suit. That woman is not in this room tonight. Not embarrassing anybody. There's a trolley on the New Holland Pike.